Welcome back. Yes, and we are back. I'm back in my classroom. Yesterday, I taught from home. That was sad. I don't know. You all missed that. But now we're back here. It is a Friday. What a wonderful day it's been. Goodness gracious. Anyway, well, if you would, I would prefer that you all leave wonderful comments in that chat. That would be great for me. If you could just leave that comment in that chat, that I can, for my records, and check those things later, that'd be wonderful. I will let you know how this class is going to be running today, that is. And we'll see. Well, I got to give you some reminders as well as to what you guys got to do for me. So, there they are. I don't know who Lightning Tiger is. Can anyone fill me in on who Lightning Tiger is? I don't know. Lightning Tiger. Anyway, hopefully that person corrects themselves before we move on with what we need to do today. Couple of reminders. Number one, you do have a homework assignment due for me. The homework assignment being a page out of the textbook that I would like you guys to get done. I assigned that the other day. I need that done. It's just a short little assignment trying to get some practice with solving these radical equations that we've been working on for many class periods. I have, as promised, also assigned you a major assessment, which is not due until, and I want to double check this so I don't make myself look foolish, it is not due until Tuesday at 2 p.m. So that major assessment on Edgelastic is not due until Tuesday at 2 o'clock. So I will be able to give you a reminder in class on Tuesday. Let's get that thing done. That would be fantastic because I want to wrap up Chapter 6. All of that is intended to wrap up Chapter 6. You're going to be solving these radical equations in the homework assignment just as a little extra practice. You're going to be getting this major done in Edgelastic from me. That would be wonderful. And then we'll be done with it. And then today, we are going to be starting something slightly new. A new chapter. I want to introduce you to the next chapter. So, again, just a reminder for those that are coming in, I see 12 in the chat, but I see a whole ton of comments, including a Lightning Tiger, who I still don't know who that is. But like I said, make sure you've left that comment. Okay, here's my introduction to this chapter. Now, in a normal year, in a normal school year, if I were introducing this chapter, I would do some kind of a strategic activity where I would give you guys the opportunity to make a choice between two types of homework plans. And I would have people make this choice in the classroom, and I'd have you'd write your answer on Post-its, and then I'd collect all your Post-its, and I'd throw it all up on the board and see, this is what people chose. Let's laugh at them, because now let me show you the math behind it. And then I would show you the math behind it, and then everyone would be like, those fools. How could they make the wrong choice? So, I'm not going to have you guys choose, per se. Actually, no, I could have you guys choose. I can't do Post-its right now. And I would prefer not to have to count up votes in the chat. So in reality, I could make a Google form. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to do that right now, right in front of you. Yeah. So, you are going to have a choice of homeworks. Now, the idea, plan A versus plan B. There we go. That's going to be required. And the responses, I'm going to make it so that you have to be in your email, collect email addresses, limit one response, save. Excellent. Cool. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to describe to you these two plans, Plan A and Plan B. And then after I describe these plans to you, I am going to paste a link into the Google, into the Google. I'm going to paste a link into the live chat, and you are going to utilize that link to answer the question, to make your anonymous choice. Now, I say anonymous choice. I'm going to know what choice you made because you're in your school email, and this thing does require you to be logged in, and you only get one shot at this. Now, obviously, this is not a make or break situation. It's just a fun little choice. Here are the plans. Pretend for a moment that you walked into my classroom in September. And on day one, I said to you, I'm going to give you a choice of two specific homework plans. And whatever choice you make on that day, September, whatever choice you make, you are stuck with. That's your choice. You can't change it. So there are 36 weeks in the school year. And I say to you, okay, here's Plan A. Plan A is every single week, your grade will be based on 5 hours worth of math homework. Basically, I would give you enough math homework to cover 5 hours worth of work, and you would have to turn that in, and I would grade it. And every single week, your grade would be solely based on 5 hours of math homework every single week. Now, mind you, there are 36 weeks in school year. So every single week, 5 hours, 5 hours, 5 hours, 5 hours. Even the week of midterms, 5 hours, 5 hours, 5 hours, every single week. That's one choice. You can choose. You can choose to go with that plan, or you can choose to go with a different plan. That's up to you. Mind you, your grade is solely based on that. Like, I'm not going to do tests and quizzes. I'm not going to do participation. Your grade is solely based on 5 hours of homework per week. So here's Plan B. Because you get to make a choice in a minute. Because in a minute, after I describe Plan B, I am going to post the link for your the Google form that you can answer. And you're going to make a choice. You're going to submit your choice. Here's Plan B. So you walk into my classroom the beginning of September, and I present to you these two plans. Plan A, which I just described, and now here's Plan B. Now, mind you, again, Plan B is the only thing that your grade will be based on. During week 1 of the school year, you would get 1 second of homework. Ms. Markey, how are you going to give us 1 second of homework? Think about math. Done. Here's 100. Then during week 2, you would get 2 seconds of homework. Think about math some more. Done. All right. Week 3, you would get 4 seconds of homework. Write down your favorite number. Yay, we're done. Here's 100. And that would continue for 36 weeks. Those are your two choices. You walk into my classroom on day 1, and you have to choose how you are going to be evaluated throughout the course of the school year. So now you have to make a choice. You're going to make your choice. I am going to post the link to the Google form into the chat here. Here we go. And you are either going to choose Plan A or Plan B. So you right now, take a moment. I am going to ask that everyone make their decision within the next couple of minutes. You're going to click that Google form in the chat, and you are either going to submit that you would agree to plan A or that you would agree to plan B. Do that now. Keep in mind that Google form does require a collection of emails, so you should be logged into your school account in order to get that thing done. Do it now. I'll give you a minute or two. Let me see. Ooh, I got 7 responses so far. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm not going to tell you exactly who responded. Of course, I can see that myself, but I can tell you the percent breakdown in a little bit. But if you are in this live chat, ooh, you should be responding. Unless, I don't know, perhaps you're not actually watching the lesson. But again, those are your 2 choices. Make your choices. Make them now. Give you 30 more seconds. Now, keep in mind, throughout the course of the school year, you cannot change your answer. So if you decide in September that you're going to go with plan A, you got to stick with plan A. If you decide you're going to pick plan B in the beginning of the year, you have to stick with plan B. And you have to stick with it for the entirety of the school year. Oh, that's your choice. That's what your whole grade's being based on. Let me see it one more time. I got about 10 responses. All right. I'm going to click the thing to stop accepting responses in the next few moments. Again, giving people the opportunity to click on the link in the chat and give your response. So now I can actually see who's watching and who just muted me. All right. I'm going to click that thing to stop accepting responses. Click. There we go. Not accepting responses anymore. Oh, wow, that's funny. Look at those responses. I'm not even kidding you. It was 50-50. It was literally 50-50. 50% of you picked plan A, and 50% of you picked plan B. My goodness, that's interesting. Wow. Okay, here's what I need. Which plan was the correct plan? Which plan gave you the easier option? Ladies and gentlemen, if you do not already have them out, I'm going to need those notebooks out and open. I want to talk a bit about what the heck is going on here. There we go. My cord got on there. Make sure that's working properly. Got pulled over a little bit. Yeah. It's as good as it's going to get there. Okay. Again, if you have a question while we're doing this, of course, I have the live chat open right in front of me, so I can see exactly what's going on here. Duplicate to this, to this. There we go. Okay. In fact, actually, first, before I get to the notes, I want to show you a little calculation. There we go. I want to show you a little calculation first. If you decide that you are going to do the 5 hours of week, that means that, 5 hours for week 1 and 5 hours for week 2 and 5 hours for week 3, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all the way for 36 weeks. Which means by the end of the school year, you would have about 180 hours worth of homework. That's literally 1 hour for every official day in school. Of course, I see you every other day, but that's okay. Get that thing done. 5 hours a week. Well, what the heck is going on with Plan B? Because half of you chose Plan A, but the other half chose Plan B. What's going on with it? With Plan B, you start off with 1 second of homework. And then you go to 2 seconds, and then you go to 4 seconds. And I said it would continue like that. It would continue like that for the entirety of the school year. So which one are you going to choose? Some people argue, okay, I know that it's doubling, and it is. I know that it's doubling, but, it can't be that bad for the entire, it's only 36 weeks. Well, let's see what happens. If I were to double this, let's start with 1. Start with 1 times 2. That's week 2, week 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now, I stopped there after 9 weeks because 9 weeks into the school year would put us at the end of the first marking period. And at that point, after 1 marking period, you are doing 256 seconds of homework. I wonder what 256 seconds is about 4.25 minutes. That's not that bad for the week, for the entire week. All right. While everyone else is doing 5 hours. All right. But that's only 1 marking period. Again, I said this would be the way I would grade you for the entire school year. So here's week 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. I stopped there at 18. I stopped there at 18 because that's halfway through the school year. That's midterms. Now, keep in mind, midterms, I'm still grading that homework, and that's going to be what I expect of you. Get that stuff done. But 131,072, that's measured in seconds. Hold on. Minutes. Hours. Ooh. Huh. All of a sudden, those of you that chose Plan B, by the time we get to midterms, in that 1 week, you're doing 36 hours of homework. Ooh. That's painful. Huh. Well, I wonder what's going to happen by the end of the school year. Because if you chose Plan A, you're only doing 5 hours. All of a sudden, they're doing 36, and it's at midterms. I don't know. All right, hold on. 131,072. We got to go all the way to the end of the school year. So I got to multiply by 2 again. So this is 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. Uh-oh. If you chose this option, all of a sudden you're doing that many seconds of homework. I wonder what the heck that is. Divided by 60, that's minutes. That's hours. Oh, wait a minute. That's days. That's years. Huh. So if you chose plan B, then the last week of the school year, just in that last week, you would be doing over 1,000 years worth of homework. You better have it done, because I will be grading it. What the heck happened? What in the heck happened here? It started off with like 1 second and 2 seconds and 3 seconds. Or I'm sorry, 1, 2, and 4 seconds, I should say. Huh. It's almost like something's weird is going on here. It's like, you ever hear the phrase that escalated quickly? This literally escalated unbelievably quickly. There is something specifically going on here. And I want to show you that. Let's see. I'll go to 36. There we go. And I'll go from 0 to... I'll go to 1,000,000. There we go. Look at this graph. I'm about to put a graph up here. Oh, snap. If I hit trace and I go back to 0, actually, no, 1. If I go to 1, you can see it blinking right there. And then at the bottom of my screen, you can see x equals 1, y equals 1. That's 1 second of homework during week 1. And then there's the 2. And then there's the 4 seconds. There's the 256 seconds after the first marking period. There, right there, climbing up that graph, that's midterms. That's the amount you would have to do at midterms. This is an example of exponential growth. Exponential growth. A lot of you are familiar with the concept of something being exponential. You've heard exponential growth and exponential decay or something along those lines. And I'm going to get into those details today with the algebra and the math behind it. But I wanted to show you this. This is a perfect example of exponential growth. One very, not famous, I should say, but familiar idea of exponential growth is the concept of money being in a bank account. You know, if I were to, let's say, search the Dow Jones Industrial Average and hit the maximum right here, you can see this graph doesn't, do it justice, but it grows at kind of an exponential value. I mean, there are obviously a lot of dips going on here. And this thing only goes back to like 1981. And you can see little drops here and there. But it's following something of an exponential model. You could also talk about exponential decay. And people know about exponential decay in regards to radioactive material. But exponential decay could also be how things are valued over time. A car, the value of a car drops exponentially over time. The value of a house is supposed to, as long as you have proper upkeep, is supposed to grow exponentially over time. Let's get into these details. Ladies and gentlemen, I asked you to have your notebooks out and open, and now I'm ready to begin this. Today is the 19th, and this is Intro to Exponentials. Intro to Exponentials. Now, Exponentials is the brand new chapter in our textbook. It is chapter 7. And as I said, we are going to be getting to a lot of those details. It's going to be great. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be phenomenal. So let's see. Y equals b to the x power. This is a simple exponential. There are going to be other things that I'm going to add along to it, right, in due time. But this is a simple exponential. It still has an x, it still has a y. But the thing that you need to recognize is the fact that the variable of x is now in the exponent. The variable is going to change over time, but the variable of x is now in the exponent. B is your base. Now, there are two different types of exponential equations that we are going to be focusing on. One of them being exponential growth and one of them being exponential decay. Now, your B value, the value of B, is going to determine whether or not the graph or equation that you have is a growth or a decay. And I'll show you those examples in a little bit. So if B is greater than 1, if B is greater than 1, then that is a growth. I'll show you those visuals in a little bit. If B, and notice how I'm writing this actually. I'm writing this kind of as a compound inequality a little bit. 0 less than B less than 1. Compound inequality. It's basically saying if B is between 0 and 1, then you have a decay. B cannot be 0, 1, or negative. B cannot be 0, 1, or negative. So either the B value, what the base that is underneath the exponent, is going to be a number greater than 1, or it's going to be a number between 0 and 1. Please keep that in mind. Now, a little bit more standard or standardized exponential, because I showed you the simple one, but the standard exponential looks like this. There it is. Make sure that's written correctly. And yes, that is a plus k at the end. That is a plus k at the end. And that is an x minus h up in the exponent. H and k are still a part of this situation. See, in the standard exponential, you could have a number being multiplied by the base to the exponent. You wouldn't actually multiply them together, and I'll show you the example in a little bit. But that A value, that A value doesn't determine whether or not it's a growth or a decay. That A value does something else entirely. I'm going to show you that in a little bit. The H and K, they simply shift the graph over. Let's see what we do. Aha. So here are examples of what an exponential growth would look like. And I need you to draw these carefully. Actually, before I do that, I want to show you visually what it looks like on the calculator, because you need to see something here. I've already shown you one thing on the calculator, but I need to show you something else entirely. So let me, on this calculator, and please look very, very carefully here. I just put in a very basic exponential, very simple exponential, 2 to the x power. 2 to the x power. Now, I'm going to hit graph. There we go. And you're going to see this thing flying across. I'm going to hit trace, and we're going to see what happens here. Now, again, look at the numbers at the bottom of this little screen right here. Look at the numbers on the bottom of that little screen right there. Look at those things. I wonder, would you be able to see this better if I showed this? I wonder. Hold on, let me zoom in here. You might be able to see it a little bit better if I did it here. Maybe, actually. Yeah, you might be able to see it better here. Hold on. Let me reset this. Let me put in 2 to the x power. That's 2 to the x. There we go. And let me graph that sucker. Yeah, you can kind of see it a little bit better. Now check this out. If I hit trace, look at the bottom of that screen where it says x equals 1 and y equals 1. It's blinking on the calculator right there, yes. As I move to the right, you can see the y values increasing, and you can see me going up that exponential curve, and it's going to basically like escalate unbelievably quickly and skyrocket. This is an exponential growth. But watch what happens as I move to the left. This is the important part. Look at the y values. As I move to the left, the y values are getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. There's something going on here. There's a term that I need to introduce to you. See, what's happening here on this curve is as you move to the right, the values are being doubled every time. But as you move to the left, they are being cut in half. Think of what I was doing with plan B on the homework assignment. You started off with 1 second, and then you went to 2, and then you went to 4. What would happen from there? It would keep going. It'd be 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, and it would keep going up. That's the skyrocketing part. But what would happen going to the left? I said it was being cut in half. So think about the opposite pattern. You go from 8 to 4 to 2 to 1, but keep going. 1/2, 1/4, 1/8, 1/16, 1/32, 1/64. These numbers keep getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. 1/128, 1/256, 1/512, 1/1024, 1/2048, 1/4096. It keeps going and going and going, but the number, as small as it gets, will never reach 0. This is an unbelievably important concept that I need you to recognize. The number, if you keep cutting it in half, going to the left, it will never actually reach 0. This is a very weird concept where this curve keeps going out forever, but it's not a horizontal line. It's actually still curving down, 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 and it keeps going down forever. You know the concept of infinity. The concept of infinity is that there is no largest number. There is no largest number. If you think of the largest possible number in your mind, you can always make it larger by adding 1. Go to the opposite end of the spectrum now. Think of the smallest possible positive number. Let me repeat that. The smallest possible positive number, like 0.0001 or something like that. I can make that smaller by dividing by 2, and it's still positive. I can make it smaller again by dividing by 2. In fact, I can divide by 2 forever. It will continually get smaller but it will still be greater than 0. What I'm describing to you is the concept of an asymptote. You may have heard the phrase before, or the word, I should say, asymptote. Some people call them asymptotes. I had a student one year who couldn't pronounce either and would always call it an asymptote, but it's an asymptote. I'm going to spell it for you in a little bit. An asymptote is an invisible barrier that the graph will continually approach, but it'll never get there. Now, that definition applies to exponentials. In a future chapter, I'm going to have to adjust that. But an asymptote is an invisible barrier that the graph will approach, but it'll never actually get there. Imagine, I do this example in class, and it's much easier to see when you can actually see me. But I would do this thing where I would walk towards the door, and I would walk half the distance and then stop. And then I would walk half the distance and then stop. And then I would walk half the distance and stop. And I would keep doing that. Theoretically, I could keep doing that forever. I could walk half the distance to the door and stop, half the distance to the door and stop. And I would keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. And I would never stop doing it if those were the rules. Now, literally, if I'm like this far away from the door, oh, look, I got the door, I'm there, yay. But that's not the purpose of the game. That's not the rules. The rules were, with my feet, I would walk half the distance and then stop, half the distance and then stop. Those would be the rules of the game. It would never end because there is an asymptote that I can't cross. Now, that asymptote is controlled. That asymptote can be decided and determined beforehand. But let me show you a very basic example of what the graphs look like, and then I want to talk about potentially graphing a few. So here is an example, just an example, of a growth. Now, it's going to start off slow, and then eventually it'll skyrocket. I want you to draw this. Now, keep in mind, to the left, it's not that the line to the left is horizontal. It's the line to the left is actually what we call flatlining. It's like a heartbeat or whatever. It's flatlining. Another type of exponential growth looks like this. That is also an exponential growth. But Mr. Markey, it's going down. Yeah, I know it's going down, but it's still a growth because it's getting extraordinarily large as you move to the right. But Mr. Markey, it's going down. I know. It can still be an exponential growth and go down. Think the national debt. National debt is an exponential growth that goes down into the negatives, I should say. This is still an exponential growth. How does one determine whether it's a growth or a decay based on the way that the graph looks? Well, if I was going to be talking about a decay, it would look something like this. As you go to the right, it flatlines. It flatlines on the asymptote. Now, the asymptote's not always going to be on the axis. The asymptote could be anywhere. But as you move to the right, it flatlines. And if it flatlines, that is an exponential decay. Here is another example of one. Move that up a bit. there is another example of an exponential decay. It doesn't matter if but it's going up and up and up and up and up and up and up. I understand that, but it's flatlining. If it flatlines going to the right, it is a decay. Now, something that's very interesting in regards to that standard exponential that I wrote earlier, that standard exponential, which I'm going to rewrite that equation again right here, just for the sake of argument and clarity. Y equals K. Y equals K. Whatever that K value is the horizontal asymptote. Y equals K is the horizontal asymptote. Again, just for the sake of clarity, if you can't really see it that well, I'm going to spell the word asymptote. It is ASY MPTOTE. That is an asymptote. Man, Mr. Markey, you're being a real asymptote right now. Oh, thanks. Depending on what the equation is, you can change that value of K. And in turn, would change the value of the asymptote. Let me show you what I mean. We are going to graph the following. Y equals 2 to the x power minus 3. We are going to graph 2 to the x power minus 3. Now, right off the bat, I would want to recognize the fact that b is equal to 2, thus making it a growth, because if the b value is greater than 1, then you would definitely have a growth on your hands. And y equals -3 is the asymptote. Because that's the K value. Now, I would go to my calculator just to kind of see what this thing would look like. But as always, I need a bit of accuracy. And that accuracy I'm going to get from my table of values. So first, let me actually create this little XY plane thing going on here. There we go. Very nice. XY plane. Happy little XY plane. And now let me go to my calculator. There we go. I typed in y equals 2 to the x power minus 3. Now I'm going to graph it just to kind of get an idea as to what it looks like. Ho ho! Look at that sucker. What that K value does, typically, is shift the whole graph vertically. And it does. It shifts this entire graph down 3 units, being that it's a -3. Let me go to my table of values here. Second graph. I would like to plot a few of these numbers. I'm not going to write them down right now. I'm just going to plot them on the graph as is. I'm not going to plot all of them. I'm going to plot some of them. 0, -2. 1, -1. 2, 1. 3, 5. I think that's all I can fit going to the right. However, if I go to the left, ooh, something interesting happens there. Let me plot one of them, then I'm going to come back to this table. -1, -2.5, -2, -2.75. Okay. Let me go here real quick. Those are the points that I've plotted so far. Going to the right, this thing follows that exponential growth behavior as we've talked about. But going to the left, it keeps going. But it's approaching an asymptote. Now, asymptotes, technically, you can't see them. On this graph right here, you can't actually see the asymptote because the asymptote is actually, well, for the lack of a better term, it's invisible. So what does one do? Once you identify what the asymptote is, you can actually put it on the graph as a dotted line. And I'm putting it as a dotted line, a dotted horizontal line, so that I know I can approach it, but I can't cross it. There we go. I'll move that over a little bit. See that a little bit better? But I want to emphasize something to you. If you have this thing approaching the asymptote, number one, you better not be crossing that asymptote. Number two, it does not curve back up. It doesn't curve back up. It flatlines going to the left. This is an exponential growth. We know that because of the B value. We know that because visually this thing is skyrocketing left to right. But it's going to flatline somewhere. It's going to flatline on the asymptote. Now, I want to show you something on this little calculator thing. Check this junk out right here. If I go back to second graph, look at the Y values up here. As I keep going, look at the Y values right there. Look, I'm at like -2.999. And then eventually, the calculator does say -3, but look at the bottom of my screen right there. It's -2.9995. If I keep going a bit, look at the bottom of the screen. -2.99998. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Eventually, the calculator is going to give up because it doesn't know how to calculate this anymore. And it gives up right about there. But look at the number at the bottom of the screen. It's getting as close as humanly possible to -3. But it will never actually get there. The calculator doesn't know how to handle this, so it just gives up and says -3. But in reality, you should recognize the fact that it's not actually touching that -3. It's getting as close as possible, but it's never getting there because this could have an infinite number of nines, and it would be -2.999 like 100 times down the line, but it'll never actually reach the value of 3. That is the concept of an asymptote. That is the concept of an exponential. So now, if I had to talk about domain and range here, domain and range. Domain is the list of all possible inputs. The domain is the list of all possible x values. The domain is how far left and right this graph goes. And in this case, since it travels left and right forever, -infinity to +infinity. But in terms of the range, yes, this thing goes up forever, but it doesn't go, well, where does it go down to? Do I put -2.9999999? No. You are going to put a -3 to infinity. But For the range, you are going to put a parenthesis around that -3, the parenthesis and not the bracket. The bracket would indicate that it actually reaches that number. But because I'm putting a parenthesis around there, it means that it will be, well, greater than -3, but it will never be equal to -3. That is what this thing does. It is a crazy, crazy thing here. I don't know if you are familiar. By the way, this is what I'm going to wrap up with today. I don't know if you are familiar or not with the cartoon show Futurama. Some of you may be. But Futurama was very popular amongst mathematicians because they hid a lot of math within their episodes. And whenever they did math in their episodes, you better believe that that math was accurate. It totally was. And what was nice about it, you could always go back and look at it and do the math yourself, and it works. So the concept of Futurama was this character named Fry living in the year 2000, accidentally gets frozen for 1,000 years and wakes up in the year 3000. Hijinks happen. There's one episode in season 1 where he realizes that living in the year 3000, he doesn't really have a lot of options. He doesn't have a lot of money. He had a job, but he didn't really know what to do now. But then he remembers, oh, I had a bank account back in the year 2000. And this bank account had a certain amount of money in it. It had like $1 and change. I think it had less than $1, actually. I'm going to show you the clip, of course, of that scene. But he had like somewhere around $1. But that dollar was left in that bank account for 1,000 years, untouched. And what do bank accounts, savings accounts in particular, do? They earn you interest. They earn you interest. They earn you something known as compounded interest. And that compound interest is exponential. Now, keep in mind, you have to leave the money alone for about 1,000 years. Let me do this first and then find it here. Let's see, Futurama. I don't think the Comedy Central one's blocked. Futurama interest. This'll do. I got to get past the advertisement. Come on, advertisement. Come on, advertisement. Okay. So let's see if this works. I am going to flip my screen over, and I'm going to keep the microphone in front of the speakers so that you can hear what the heck is going on. But watch what happens here. Hopefully it skips past this part.
Do we have enough money to pay vendor's fine?
78, 79, 79.50. Crud. We're 50 cents short.
I'd love to chip in, but Bender stole my wallet.
Hey, that's my old bank. Maybe my account's still open.
We don't seem to have your retina scan, your fingerprint, or your colonic map on file.
Yeah, well, I did open the account over 1,000 years ago. What about my ATM card?
Do you still remember your PIN number?
Sure. It's the price of a cheese pizza and a large soda back where I used to work. Panucci's Pizza.
Okay, you had a balance of 93 cents.
All right.
Now, this thing is actually showing you the calculation using that exponential compound interest formula. He starts out with 93 cents, which is what they call the principal amount, although this guy misspelled it.
Okay, you had a balance of 93 cents.
All right.
And at an average of 2.25% interest over a period of 1,000 years.
So now what banks do is they offer you an interest rate, and that interest rate is actually a part of the calculation for the value of B, the base. The number of years, you can see that formula, and we're going to do this formula in another class period, but the number of years is acting as the exponent. That's the variable, because as time goes on, the variable changes, and nothing else does.
$4.3 billion.
It went to a commercial again. That's okay. But it was $4.3 billion. The general idea behind it, again, is this idea of exponential growth. Things tend to escalate quickly. Just like when you started out, if you picked plan B of the homework plan, you started out with 1 second and then 2 seconds and then 4 seconds worth of homework. But then by the end of the school year, you were doing over 1,000 years of homework. Same concept happens with the money. Things tend to start off kind of slow, and then they escalate quickly. Now, one might argue like, oh man, I got to put my money into a bank account. You're not really going to get a great interest rate. And because you're not really going to get a great interest rate at local banks, your money will grow, but it will grow very slowly at first. Very slowly. You're going to have to wait many, 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 many years for that money to grow where you kind of want it to be. So I suggest other investments. I do. I'm going to have more conversations about that moving forward because I have a lot of other ideas as to where you really should invest your money. I do. I'll save that for another day, though. In the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, you have 2 specific things to get done for me. Number 1, a page out of the textbook. Practice solving radical equations. And you have a major to get done for me. We reviewed for that major last class. You can always look at that video and refresh yourself on the review as you tackle this edge elastic major. I expect those things done by the due date. If you have any questions, make sure you are emailing me. If you have not left a comment in the chat, I'm going to give you another few moments to get that done because I'm going to be signing off this live stream. And I know there's a little delay between when I say that and when you actually hear that. Okay. Then I'm going to sign off. I'm going to wave. Once I get my watch out here, I'm going to wave a little crabby. There's my little crab wave. And there we go. Ladies and gentlemen, you enjoy your weekend. Everyone have a great day. I'm going to sign off.